Welcome back to First Love Fire Homeopathy, where we learn homeopathy together, and I show you how I use it every day on my farm with my animals, my pets, my livestock, my garden, my family, and my friends. Today, we are starting a brand new series studying this book. It's called The Poultry Doctor. I'm really excited to start this. Let's get into it. All right, that's right. I have been using homeopathic remedies for my chickens and all of my livestock for a few years now, and I've had really great success. And I'm really excited to learn a lot more about it because there's way more remedies that I haven't even gotten into when it comes to my animals. So together, we're going to study this book over the next few videos and learn all about homeopathy. Now, before we start talking about the remedies, I like to just geek out a little bit here, and I love to learn about the authors of the book, because most of these homeopathic books, or a very large majority of them, were written in the 1800s or early 1900s. So the history is really, really rich and really, really cool. It's printed in the original typewriter text. This book was written by Borick and Taffel, and it was published in 1891. Now, Borick and Taffel were a couple of dudes in 1850 who decided to open themselves a bookstore / homeopathic pharmacy. They had 11 locations between 1893 and 1914. In 1915, they began closing their stores as the shift happened, going from homeopathic medicine into the allopathic medicine that we know now. A little side note about that is that the American Cancer Society was founded in 1913. So I have some opinions about that. Like, a lot of theories. So now that we know a little bit of history about the authors and kind of have a setting of what was going on when this book was written, let's get into the remedies. So our book is divided into 3 parts. The first 2 parts talk a little bit about the homeopathy that was going on at that time. It actually does discuss a little bit about the differences in homeopathy versus allopathic medicine, and so it's really interesting there. And then it talks about chicken care, keeping them clean, keeping them dry, keeping them fed well, watered well. So it's really good information to have, and it's really unique information because they did things a little bit differently in the 1800s than they do now. I'm going to just skip to part 3 where it starts talking about the remedies, and we're just going to get into it. Okay, the first ailment that this book lists, it's in alphabetical order, is apoplexy. All right, here we go. This disease, as with men, is caused by overfeeding and occurs with all classes of poultry when in a very fat condition. Okay, now we're talking about them roly-poly chickens. The bird afflicted staggers and falls. Its breath comes heavy and short. So does mine when I'm heavy and short. And somewhat resembles snoring. Eyes protruding, staring, and generally highly bloodshot. It is frequent to find apoplectic birds dead under the roost when they were apparently in excellent health. Open the bird's mouth and give a half a dozen pellets of belladonna. Other remedies are aconite, nux vomica, and pulsatilla. Nux vomica may even be better than aconite. Okay, what I really love about this is it talks about nux vomica. Now, I did a little bit of research and I looked up some things that cause this apoplexy in chickens, poultry in general. And some of those causes are hypoglycemia, vitamin B and vitamin D3 deficiencies, as well as a calcium deficiency, overfeeding, and lack of exercise. So this is the roly-poly fat chickens that are not getting enough exercise, they're overfed, and they have some vitamin deficiencies. To me, that screams the way that they encourage you to raise meat birds, or commercial meat birds are raised, not pasteurized meat birds, or meat birds that have access to outside. If you've raised them that way, they get fat, they get awkward, staggery, kind of dumb. I've had them break their legs because they're hybrid and they're raised to get fat, chunky like that. So we're looking at nux vomica. Nux vomica is the remedy that you use if you have had too much to drink or too much to eat. It's great for taking when you had too much alcohol. If you've had too much to eat, you went out, you had some rich food, you're just having a hard time sleeping, you take nux vomica and it helps clear out the system. So to me, that makes sense that you would take nux vomica for a fat bird that's eaten too much. You also need to make sure that you are removing some food and giving them more space to move, you know, taking care of the environment around them as well. Belladonna is typically for hot or fever, hot parts of the skin, and then it talks about aconite and pulsatilla. Pulsatilla tends to be for more of a green or a yucky snot. And then aconite is your trauma remedy. Our next remedy in our book is asthma. That's right, chickens get asthma. They have respiratory issues. It says, canary and other singing birds are often troubled with asthma. The breathing is easily heard, and especially after the exertion of flying. Perallium rubrum, a half dozen pellets dissolved in the water cup, affects a speedy cure. Spongia is also indicated. Also ipecac in case of too much flesh, and bryonia in asthmatic panting of old age. A little plantain seed is said to aid recovery in obstinate cases. This disease is often mistaken for roup. Now that makes sense because spongia is also later in the book and a remedy that's indicated for roup. It is definitely a good one for the respiratory issues. Bryonia in asthmatic panting of old age, that makes sense because bryonia is the worst from movement remedy. So if a chicken is sitting there, it's panting, and it doesn't want to move, it's worse for movement, the bryonia is going to help kickstart that comfort in moving. Ipecac is also for a stomach issue. If they have a icky belly, then that's going to help with that as well. I have had asthma attacks before, allergy induced, and I know that when you get coughing so much, your stomach can start to hurt and you can feel like you also need to vomit, and so I can see why ipecac would also be a remedy for this. Asthma is typically triggered by poor ventilation or dusty environments, and so because of that, you want to make sure that everything is clean in their coop and in their house. All right. Next up in our book is bone wen. I've never heard this term before, so I had to look up, and it's actually bone weakness or osteoporosis, essentially. It says this disease has always been deemed incurable, but where homeopathy is employed, a cure is possible, if not probable. How cool is that? Isolate the afflicted bowel and dissolve 6 pellets of hepasulf in its water dish every day for a week, unless marked improvement sets in sooner. So if it begin to improve sooner than that week, you can stop giving them the remedy. If at the end of the week no change is noticeable, then change the medicine to silica, same dose each day. Other remedies are nitric acid, calc carb, and sulfur. When changing remedy, it may be well to give the last named for one day before following with the new remedy. So if you finish giving them hepasulf, it's not working and you want to try a new one, don't give them the next one, which they say silica, the same day. Wait a night and give them silica the next day. Now, I found this to be really interesting because when you talk about osteoporosis, it's basically brittle bones, fractures, and on chickens you have deformed legs. The causes are calcium deficiency, just like in people, vitamin deficiencies, aging, just like in people, and housing confinement, yes. So not enough exercise, that makes sense. And then high egg production. Okay, well, a chicken's egg, the shell is made out of calcium. So they're using every bit of calcium they have to produce eggs. Of course, they're going to get hit with osteoporosis, and specifically when they get older, as they're aging, they start laying less and less eggs because it's taxing on their bodies. And obviously, they're developing osteoporosis. Okay, I really like that they're using hepasulf here because it contains the calcium from the inner layer of the oyster shells. So again, it's healing the bone structure and adding calcium. Silica is also great here because silica facilitates bone mineralization and it improves bone strength. So perfect for osteoporosis. Next up on our list is black rot. But black rot is not something I'd ever heard of before or dealt with before. So I was really excited to see something different. And I'm not sure if it's something that was more common in the 1800s, with just like sanitation conditions, or if it is something that is common now and I just haven't run into it yet. It says for black rot, in this disease, the comb turns a blackish color, legs may swell, and emaciation accompanies. Bad food and unhealthy surroundings seem to be the cause. Remedy these and give thuja. The true remedy for this disease is problematical, depending on the cause of the disease. Nux vomica may be called for, and podophyllum, if the seat of the derangement be the stomach or liver, respectively. Okay, so bad food and unhealthy surroundings seem to be the cause. So thuja is what they're calling for as the first remedy. Thuja is typically used for fungus. So typically, if you would have a fungus issue, you would take Thuja, you can take it orally, or you can take it topically. Then again, we're talking about bad food and unhealthy surroundings. So it brings up that Nux vomica again. Nux vomica is a remedy used for when you have eaten rich foods or the wrong things. So with your poultry, if they've eaten bad food, you can get them the Nux vomica. Next up in our book is for broken bones. When bones are broken in fowls, one can readily see at a glance what is the trouble if it be a leg bone. With other bones, a break can be detected by examination only, when a swelling will appear over the broken bone, which is evidently painful to the touch. These usually heal themselves if the fowl is kept quiet. A compound fracture is beyond the skill of most people, but a simple break is not. Bring the broken parts gently but firmly together, bind with linen bandages, and hold in place by a couple of appropriate sized splints. Moisten the linen frequently with a lotion of 1 part tincture of symphytum mixed with 5 parts water. How long the treatment is to continue must depend on the condition of the fracture, and that the one having charge of the case alone can decide. After the operation, give the patient 1 dose of aconite, say 3 pellets in the mouth, and at the expiration of a week, put 6 pellets of Hippersalf in the water for 1 day only. Okay, so we're talking about broken bones, and I have dealt with broken bones, especially with those Cornish cross, when they just get so fat and chunky towards the end. Separate them or isolate them so that the others don't start pecking at them. And this says to simply make a little splint for them, and then you make a tincture with symphytum. Now you can simply take symphytum liquid and make that into a tincture, which it says here, 1 part symphytum mixed with 5 parts water. But you can also do the same thing with the pellets. Put some pellets in some water, maybe just like a few tablespoons, and let them dissolve, and then shake them up really well. And what you're going to do is you're going to wrap that broken leg with a gauze or something that is absorbent, and you'll keep it soaked with that symphytum tincture, that symphytum water essentially, until their leg is healed. It talks about after the operation, so meaning after you have splinted their leg and put them through somewhat of a trauma, you're going to give them aconite. Well, aconite cures the shock and the trauma of the whole situation. And then a week after you have started the process and have been keeping things going, moist with the symphytum and treating them with the aconite, it says to add Hippersalf. Now, Hippersalf is for infection. So now you're going to just make sure that that leg is not going to become infected. That's really exciting. We interrupt this homeopathy lesson for some cute little chickies. And while we're sitting here with these little guys, let's talk about chicken pox. That's right. Chickens get chicken pox, apparently. Some writers designate this disease smallpox. It is known by blotches on the comb and neck and pustules under the wings and feathers generally, while the fowls seem weak and melancholy. Homeopathically treated, it is not dangerous. How cool is that? The disease is contagious and the sick should be separated from the well. Though if the flock is pretty generally attacked, let the treatment extend to all. The treatment consists in dissolving from 1 to 3 dozen pellets of arsenicum, according as a few or many as afflicted in the drinking water. Okay, so we're putting arsenicum in the water for chicken pox. Continue for 3 days. If no improvement is noticed, change the remedy to roost tox. Renew the medicine each day using fresh, pure water. Also indicated belladonna with a hot fever, or silica if the pustules break. I'm sure with the infection comes hot skin or fever, so that makes sense. And then silica if the pustules break. Silica pushes everything, foreign objects, foreign items, foreign material out of the body. If you like plugged ears, take silica and it'll help push the extra wax or junk out of your ears, right? So with this, it makes sense that you would be pushing the gunk out of those broken pustules to get them out of your body quicker and healing quicker. So chickens get chicken pox on their combs and on their legs and beaks. That's really interesting. Let's continue our conversation by looking at more chickies, because chicken math. Next up in our book is chip. I don't know what this is, but we're going to learn together. Chip or chipping derives its name from the peculiar cry or sound made by the bird, and it is principally attributed to lack of warmth or exposure to cold droughts. Or like these little guys. It is confined chiefly, if not entirely, to young chickens and is caused by wet weather, the light down on the little fellows getting wet and having no chance to dry. Oh, well, they look pretty dry in here. They got 2 heat lights going. It is very fatal if not taken in time. Chickens afflicted with chip seek refuge in solitary places where they're detected by the regular and plaintive cry, and generally remain there until they die. They exhibit tenderness on being touched and perceptible fever, although they tremble violently as though cold. If possible, they should be given dry shelter and warmth. A number of remedies are indicated in this disease, so many indeed that it's difficult to decide which to give the preference. Okay, well, with homeopathy, we know that we treat the symptoms, not the disease. So even though we're looking at chip or chipping here, we don't necessarily have to know that that's what we're dealing with. And it says right here, it can be difficult to decide which remedy to give, and that's because this disease typically has a handful of different symptoms to go with it. It is best perhaps to begin with veratrum, as that remedy has external chill with internal heat. So the chicken feels like it's warm, acting like it's cold, it's got the shivers. Dozen or more pellets dissolved in the drinking water, or if they will not drink, dip a little white bread in the water and let them eat it if they will. Among other remedies are arsenicum, aconite, dulcamara, and colchicum, the last named being preferred by some authorities. Give the selected remedy 20 hours trial, and if there's no improvement, change to one of the others named. Oh, well, I think they're warm and dry for now, so I don't think we have to worry about any chipping. But now that I know that that's something to look out for, I will definitely do so. Good night, little guys. We're going to end today's remedies back in the big coop. And the last remedy we're going to look at today is cholera. Now, I don't know that cholera is even a thing anymore, to be honest. But what is very interesting about this is that it does talk more about the symptoms. And so you're going to be able to recognize symptoms and then recognize the remedies for those symptoms. Because again, it's really nice that with homeopathy, you don't have to know the disease. You don't have to have a name for it. You can simply just treat the symptoms, and the body will actively be healing from the inside out. Remedies just ignite the body to heal itself, as that's how we are made. That's how all God's creatures are made, to heal themselves. And these remedies simply do that on a cellular level, tell the bodies to heal themselves. So it's really cool. All we have to do is find the symptoms. Let's check out cholera in 1891. It was frequently observed at the times and places when cholera was epidemic among human beings that chickens, turkeys, geese, and farmyard fowls generally became, in many instances, similarly affected. At the present day, the word cholera is applied to an epidemic which, while varying somewhat in different parts of the country, is always accompanied by a violent diarrhea and is very fatal. Okay, now, some of the characteristics of this disease are sad looks, lost appetite, weakness, staggering, thirst, hanging heads. In more advanced stages, a tough mucus trickled from the bills, which hang so low as to touch the ground. The comb becomes shrunken and of a bluish color, while the diarrhea is violent and almost liquid. Okay, like, we're getting TMI here. Yellowish or greenish, frothy, as the end approaches, the eyes close. This is brutal. Are they about to tell me we can actually fix this? Being an epidemic, it is well to treat the entire flock, though if the sick can be isolated, so much the better. European writers highly commend veratrum album, both as curative and as preventing the spread of the disease. Dissolve anywhere from 2 dozen pellets to half the vial, according to size of flock, in water given the fowls to drink, or take part of the water and moisten their food with it. Arsenicum is also quite as valuable in cholera. The symptoms of both remedies bear great resemblance. So, arsenicum and veratrum are the 2 remedies that are suggested the most for cholera. And if you're looking at these symptoms, it's crazy amounts of diarrhea. So if you've got animals or humans with crazy amounts of diarrhea, I would go to those remedies for sure. Arsenicum actually makes sense to me because arsenicum, it's like treats like, and arsenicum is a remedy made from arsenic, but it's a poison. And so if you have been exposed to any kinds of poisons, like a cleaner or a pesticide or something that you've gotten with you or your animals have gotten, arsenicum is a great remedy for that. It goes in there and it like treats like. The likeness of the super diluted arsenic treats the poisoned bodies. So this concludes our first segment of the study of this book. Here are all of the diseases in the book that we studied today, and here are all of the remedies that we discussed. But this gives you the opportunity to further look through your materia medica at these remedies if you're not familiar with them and get them in your kit. Thank you so much for joining us today, and remember, Jesus first, then homeopathy.